Welcome to video number 2. Now that we've set up the basic file structure, let's move on to setting up the database and filling it with some sample content. I have MAMP running, so I'm going to open up Google Chrome and open up phpMyAdmin and create a new database. I'm going to call it ks_shop, but you're welcome to call it whatever you want. And I want to fill this database with 2 tables. The first table is going to be a categories table, which is going to have 2 fields. The first field is going to be an ID, which is going to be an int. It's going to be the primary key and also auto increment. The second one is name, which is going to be a varchar with 32 characters. So I'm going to save this. I'll create that table. Let's create one more table. This one I'm going to call products. It's going to have 6 fields. It's going to have an ID, which will be an int, and like the previous one, it'll be a primary key and auto increment. This ID will uniquely identify the particular product in the database. It's going to have a category ID, and this is going to link this particular product with whatever category we want to associate with it. This is going to be an int as well. It's going to be a name, and this will just be a varchar with 32 characters. And have a description, and this one will actually make a text. It's going to have a price, which will be a double, and finally we're going to have an image, and this will hold the path to the image file that displays the product, and this is going to be text. So save, and we now have 2 tables created successfully. Now I could go ahead and fill these tables with test data manually, but it's a little bit easier if I simply import a file. So I'm going to go to insert, I'm going to go to import. I'm going to choose my file, and in this case I'm going to pull the db_dump_content, and that's just going to insert certain categories and certain products into our database. So open that, and I click go. It'll automatically import everything for us. So you notice if we go to categories and we browse, we have 3 different categories in our store now. If you go to products and browse, you'll notice that we have 6 different products in the database ready for us to work with. As the last thing in this video, let's modify our application to allow us to connect to the database. So I'm going to switch back to my text editor. I'm going to open up init.php. And this file is going to be included in all files on our website. It's going to be used to store basic configuration settings, things that are needed for the application to work correctly. So I'm going to start out with an opening PHP tag and a comment. And I like to include a comment at the start of every file just to give an idea of what the file is about and what it does. So the file is called init, and it's going to store basic configuration settings. And the first thing that I want in this file is to connect to the database. So I'm going to set up a couple different variables to store settings. So I'm going to set up the server. It's going to be localhost. The user is going to be root. And it should be root for both MAMP or WAMP, it doesn't matter which you're running. For the password, if you're running WAMP, just leave the string blank, otherwise you're going to want to put in root if you're running MAMP. And then DB for the database, and we want to open up the ks_shop database. And finally, as the last line of code in this section, we want to create a database object. Like so. And then we're going to pass in our variables. So server, user, pass, and DB. And there are probably 2 things you're asking at this point. First thing you're asking is, why is this letter capitalized? And that's not a mistyping. That's because I like to name any objects with a capital letter to differentiate them from other more standard types of variables. And the second thing is, why am I using MySQLi rather than just using the standard MySQL? And that's because MySQLi has a couple key advantages. The two main things is that it supports object-oriented programming, which is a style I like to personally use, and I like to keep that consistent throughout my entire app. And the second thing is it provides support for prepared statements, which basically is a way that it automatically escapes variables that you insert into your SQL queries and helps keep them safer. It helps prevent MySQL injection. Basically, when someone is able to modify your database queries, potentially doing unintended things to your database, getting data it's not supposed to, deleting data it's not supposed to, all sorts of potentially dangerous things. So now that we have a connection to the database, let's modify our index.php file. So we're going to start out with an opening PHP tag. We're going to include our init file. And then, just as a quick sample, let's do an if database. And we're going to make sure that this object exists and has been initialized correctly. Like so. And I'm going to go to Chrome. Let's do a quick test. And it looks like I misspelled something. There we go. So we have a successful connection to our database, and we can move forward to the next video.